Alright, hello again, Fleet Commanders. Tiberius here with another video for you. Today we're going to be talking briefly about the Meridian ship and why you should build one, let alone build multiples of them. I touched on this a little bit in the last video because we are talking about some of the holiday rewards and kind of seeming like those were pretty lackluster and one of the better options for you to get during that. Hang on one second. Just going to pull the wrong screen up. Okay. One of the better things for you to get during that arc or that reward store for the holidays were Meridian blueprints. You could get up to 50 of them, which is half a ship. And people asked me afterwards, I recommended it, some other people recommended it. Why? I don't use the Meridian very often. It seems like kind of a one-trick pony kind of ship, very much like the Devore or the Botany Bay. And the Meridian does at least have some other uses and some other benefits that we do want to talk about. Right now I'm finishing up a mission here, this Mud's Mud mission, which you spend like uh, 80, 85 million dilithium to complete. Really just gets you 30 of each 3-star and then some recruit tokens. Not a great benefit for the actual mission, but it does unlock something in your research tree that allegedly may be good. Since I happen to finish it up right here, I know something people often wonder about as well. So if you go to your outlaw tree, all the way over here at the end, you've got these two, this Out of Darkness and this Mud's Mud. They both cost a ridiculous amount of dilithium to complete. You do the mission. The mission itself doesn't really give you a whole lot for the amount of dilithium that you spent to unlock it, but it does get you into these extra things here, which includes this G4 impulse speed, which is great for PvP if you can boost the impulse speed of your ships, so you can chase people down or run away from them, whichever you need to do. Plus, you also get eventually to these tritanium upgrades, reduce the cost of components when these things cost hundreds of million or billions of, because this is just any ship component. This isn't just G4, so this will also play into the G5s eventually at some point. When we all get there, someday, 2023 maybe. And then this other one, the Sneaky Backhander, gives you an additional rogue credit one, and Getaway Pilots gives you more bonus warp speed and stuff. But there's some, this kind of stuff is where you want to, upgrades, anything you can do to reduce the cost. While it sucks to shell out, 75, another 50 here, possibly, another 75 here rather, to get you to 150 million dilithium to do some of these, plus whatever they're going to cost. Not cheap, but just happen to be finishing that up. But what we do want to talk about here is, like I said, we're talking about the Meridian and its benefits and why you want to build one as compared to the Botany Bay and the Devore. So let's go into our ships first. We'll take a look. The Botany Bay, when you're in your low 20s, it's kind of one of your better survey ships, not for mining purposes, but for raiding. It has a very high warp speed and decent warp range. So if you're doing long distance raiding, if you can't get a spot near somebody and you're flying back and forth between systems, and the impulse speed on the Botany Bay is a lot higher than most other ships, to guess those enhancements that Khan did. So your Botany Bay is good for that. Once you kind of get outside your low to mid 20s and you start getting into your faction miners in your low 30s, it kind of outlives its usefulness, and then it's really only good for data mining. Um, the Devore, really only good for Latina mining. Even a maxed Devore warp range on it, base is basically is 40. Because of my level, I have the research that gives me an extra 10. I have the warp particle, which maybe we'll cover that in a separate video, because that's another question people ask a lot. Is where to get, how to do that whole mission chain, and where does that start? But this only gets up to warp range 50. Slow impulse speed, slow mining speed, not a whole lot of cargo capacity. Decent, it gets good protected cargo, but it mines pretty slow. So, this is something like you could park a Devore and a Botany Bay on 2 nodes, like in your territory or something, overnight, because if nobody's coming in there and attacking you, and it's a system that maybe doesn't have your alliance doesn't have a lot of demand for, and you just want to like, I'm just going to stock up on some 3-star ore. We have 2 or 3 systems that give that. Nobody's really attacking me in these systems, so I can just set it overnight and forget it. Wake up in the morning and get 6 or 7 thousand an hour, 7, 8 hours of sleep. I'm not hitting my protected cargo limit, so nobody's coming in to attack me. And I wake up and I've got an extra 50 or 60,000, or crystal, whatever, stocked up there. But the Meridian is a little bit different. Yes, I have 3 divorce because they just keep, you keep getting the blueprints for them. Um, and if you ever want to compete in Platinum Rush, you need at least 2 um, to really be able to mine as much as possible and to compete in that event. Hopefully, Scopely does something about the mining bots. Probably not ever going to happen, but fortunately, too many people seems like they're afraid of bots right now, and the risks inherited with using them. But you can literally set a bot up overnight, and it will just mine for you, going back and forth between your base and a nearby system. However, you set up the bookmarks and stuff for it. Looks like from what we've seen from other videos I've been watching, because I want to understand how they work and what Scopely could do to combat them. Um, and it really just seems like unless they're going to monitor usage, and if the only thing that's happening, you know, to a guy's account between midnight and 7 a.m. is he's mining one particular resource with one particular ship on, few nodes in the same system or the system he's camped in, that's probably it's a bot running. That's just moving the miner back and forth for him and stocking up. Um, and I admit it's hard to compete in events when you have to deal with people like that. But the Isogen events, the Isogen Rush events, the one that we're talking about with the Meridian, works similar to the Devore in terms of mining, but unlike the Devore, it's not, or the Platinum Rush mining events on Mondays, it's not resources mined, it's resources docked. So there is the PvP component to it. So some people argue that I don't really use the Meridian. The first Meridian that I have, so I don't need a second one. If you're playing on an active server with people who are, being competitive about an event like that, you're going to need to mine the resources yourself. They're going to watch their OPC, make sure they don't go over their protected cargo limits, park their ships, get them back to base so they don't get blown up and lose any of that extra resources. And it's going to be harder for you to get in there and to find ships to target to steal it from. That particular event is good. It does encourage PvP. It does give people an opportunity because if you don't have territories with isogen mines, 2-star, 3-star isogen mines, there's really no other way for you to compete. We'll come back to that in a second. Let's go look at the map. It's not what I wanted. I wanted that. So, I mean, if you don't have any territories and you don't have any isogen mines, 2 stars, 3 stars, you're limited to just these basic systems outside the territory zones. You've got a few 1-star nodes, 1-star here's, and then up in the Eclipse space as well, you've got some other 1-stars, but these are really just like 6 nodes in a system, I think. So not a lot going on here, just 3 nodes there and 3 nodes there, and those get pretty filled up pretty quickly. So very hard to compete in an event like an Isogen Rush when they do run those, unless you have territory and you have the Meridian to do it without the PvP component. So Scopely at least recognized that, put in a balance with the making you have to dock the resources, so you couldn't just stock up and mine it until you go, till you hit your max capacity and fill the thing up and then get blown up. So if you do want to compete in an event like that, it is good to have a second one. But I think what the most underrated, and I do want to pull this up on another screen for a second. I'll do it in a second. Um, the most underrated and the thing that I found surprising about the Meridian that I didn't realize is the warp range. My Meridian is now tier 6. Did not take too much isogen. We'll look at the numbers in a second to get it upgraded to here in terms of resources and time and things like that. Decent mining bonus. If you do the research, you get the protected cargo up quite a bit. Regular cargo capacity isn't terrible, even with just a standard sort of mining crew on it. I do have DuPont on there, who currently right now is adding a little bit. He's increasing it by 100% there. Warp speed, good, but right here, warp range. There's a big jump in the middle of this, right around tier 5, tier 5, tier 6, where the warp range on the Meridian goes up to over 80. Um, and that is, I think, the hidden benefit of the Meridian that separates it from other ships, is that warp range. Now, it's not the best ship in terms of just a generic mining crew. If you wanted to go looking at, say, here's a 3-star that requires, like warp 50 or so to get to. What do we got? It is mining 8,000 an hour. Not great, not ideal, but if it happens to get you to a system, and if you put, better officers on it, you can increase that 10, 12, 13,000 an hour. If you have specific, if you put Talon, or if you have 4 of 11 and the Borg crew and stuff on it, you could really get that up there. But the other benefit with that warp range is that you can reach these deep space nodes. When you get to Ops 38 and you start doing the quest missions to unlock deep space, and you get out here to these systems here. This is warp 56. I'm in deep space right now. I'm camped out there, so it's going to tell me it's going to take farther to get there because of how far out I am. But these are 56. These first little entry nodes here, I think, are 64. So unless you have a faction miner that's kind of leveled up significantly, or you're putting multiple distance officers on it, if you're putting both like Scotty, Cadet Scotty, and Grush to boost your warp range of your ship to get it from 50 maybe up to, Scotty would add 5 to get to 55. Base Grush adds 6%. So if you're only at 50, he's only adding 3 more to it, and it's going to round down. Not quite going to get you there. So then you need to get a ship. That'll get you to here. That'll get you high enough. That'll get you to 58, which will get you to one of these systems, so you can start doing some of these G4 resources, especially if you're at the faction level now, where this becomes your daily, which I think happens. Let's go take a look. Factions. Celebrated. I think it starts around here. Maybe esteemed. Admired or esteemed is where it switches. Maybe it's as early as celebrated. It might be as early as celebrated. It's definitely above your base 10 million lock. Your missions will switch from mining G3 resources to mining G4 resources. And when you get there, if you don't have territory that has a 4-star resource node, this is where you're going to have to come to get these things. It's a good number a day. It's 80,000 plus a day that you're going to need to do your daily mission. And if you're going to have to keep discoing back and forth, you're going to run out of disco juice pretty quick. So having a ship like the Meridian, not great. Again, like I said, if it's 8,000, 10,000 an hour, and you need 80,000 for your mission, you're gonna have to park it there for half the day. But it does save you from having to use the Discovery warping, not just out there, but then either you're having to get your ship destroyed by something to have it come back for free, or you've got to summon it back to get all the resources. Because that's again thing too. If you warp a ship out here and you just sort of with the Discovery and you park it on a node, and you need to mine 80,000 for your daily mission, you probably don't have 80,000 protected cargo on that ship. maybe it's 50, maybe it's 60. So you're basically going to give up 30,000 a day when you have to, if you blow your ship up, um, and that's not economical. The other option, of course, then is to summon it back with the Discovery, with the max Discovery and the officers on it. You're still spending like 750 each way, and if you have to do that 1,500 a day summoning that ship back and forth, 750 to 800 depending on your officers and their buffs, how high your culver is, and how the level you've maxed out your Discovery. It's still going to be pretty costly moving back and forth like that, especially when you only get 5,000 a week from doing your anomalous phenomena. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,000. That's all they give you for free. So unless you also want to start mining uh, mycelium spores and cashing those in, it's just not all that practical. So the practical application would be instead would be to use your Meridian. Now let's pull up STFC ships here real quick. These are sorted alphabetically. If I could spell, there we go, Meridian. So I'm going to pull the Meridian over here. If you're not using this resource, I highly recommend it. stfc.space. And then you just go to the ships tab. Got the Meridian. So if we just go start at the beginning, you build your Meridian, you get it up to here. Your warp engine basic range here is warp 25. That's straight out the box, warp 25. Doesn't cost a whole lot to build. Upgrading it requires a little bit of ISO emulsion, 7,000. Not that bad. If you have some territory, you can probably get more than this in a couple, in a day. You're refining this a day with just your, enhanced 1-star refine. You start looking at, you move it up to 3. All right, cost you a little bit more, cost you a little bit of gas and a little bit of ore, but your warp range went up to 30, so you're starting to move it up there. Yeah. All right, we'll just cut to the chase. We'll hit the warp table. So you start out, you're moving it up, you're moving it up, you're moving it up. Right here at tier 5, it goes from 45 to 80. So there's your surprise. There's your big jump going from when you start doing tier 6 components. So you get it up to tier 5, you start doing your tier 6 components. Even if you just do this one and then stop, getting this big, huge jump here to warp range will definitely make the difference. And to go from tier 1 to tier 5, 800 3-star ore, 300 or maybe about 400 gas. And again, your researchers will knock these down a little bit. 121,000 ISO emulsion is a little bit pricey. That's, a couple of researchers maybe you're putting off for another day. Titanium and dilithium, not all that bad. Repair costs, not all that bad either. A little bit of rare ore involved and rare gas, but again, not a whole lot. And then when you're looking at going from 5 to 6 and you just want to do just this warp engine component, it's a little bit more gas, but it is going to push that warp range up to 80 for you. And again, 15,000 more emulsion. So not a huge investment in terms of overall extra value there. And if you happen to have 2 meridians, great. You need gas and ore, you need gas and crystal, send 1 to each system and, start recruiting and pulling some stuff there. Start mining rather than recruiting. And it will definitely help you along the way with that. That was what I wanted to look at, was the other thing with the Meridian is the protected cargo research, which is also fairly cheap and pretty easy to complete in the beginning of the territory. This was just added, this Meridian fortification here, adding an extra 1,000 or so to the base protected cargo of the ship, which gets increased by other things you have later on. So if you have this ISO charged cargo hold or this cargo security, buffs, protected cargo increasing that a good percentage. This one increases it. Max cargo size, so this one stretches the total cargo limit out a little bit. There's a couple other in, I think it's the Galaxy tab as well, that work on survey security. This increases, so you're getting that 10,000 now gets multiplied by a number of different things, plus any officers you might have that add to protected cargo as well. Um, so you really are getting up there in terms of what this thing, this is just a pretty, like I said, it's a tier 6. I have DuPont, who's just adding a 100% there to protected cargo. You have other officers that add higher totals to that, and this protected cargo is at 55,000. But of course, you have a couple other officers who also boost that. Where's the Borg? So you've got this guy. He increases protected cargo 45%. There's another Borg officer who does protected cargo. That's 4 of 11. He increases max cargo size. That's the guy who also gets ore. So if you're mining ore, slap him as captain, increase your max cargo capacity. You can leave him out there for a little while if you don't have a fear of getting attacked. If you happen to get 3 of 11 who works on gas, this is the Borg version of T'Pring, then you get her increased protected cargo by 300%, which is going to stretch it out even further. But even just the regular version, I went right by him, didn't I? Yep. The regular version of her, if you get her maxed out, she gets the protected cargo up by 300% as well. And I believe as DuPont right now, he's only level 2. He does something similar. So let's double check on DuPont while we're looking at stuff. Bam, database, officers. These are sorted. I want rare officers. Raphael DuPont. Hidden stash ability 50%, 50, 100, 150, 200, 300. So if you had him, with T'Pring on your ship, 300 plus bonuses, gonna get this protected cargo up pretty high, 70, 80,000, possibly even higher, depending on how far you push it. But even just at tier 6, you can definitely get yourself out there. You can kind of set it and forget it, leave it in deep space for a little while, and do some mining on some of these systems. Cargo range of 80 gets you out to past the first sort of paywall here. So these first entry systems into deep space, these require like warp 65 to kind of 65 to 70 to kind of move around this first little ring. You have to get up to 75 to reach this little section here, which that would give you. Once you get to here, any of these little surrounding systems that are off this hub, you can move your base to. And then these only require warp 40 to move between. So if I got the Meridian up, used it to get myself out here, then I can move my base to this system, and then I can try and do some mining in here with any miners, and just have to relocate my base every day. Also another option. And then the next paywall, or the next warp speed wall to get past these little 43s, these start getting into the 90s here, and then to move to this next little hub out here cost you warp 120, which gets you into the G4 ships. I don't think the Meridian doesn't seem like it ever really gets up that high, that it's gonna, by the time it does, you'll already be beyond that, and you'll be onto G4 ships, whether you've got a jellyfish or you've upgraded enough, or you just happen to have one of the 42 ships that come with a pretty high warp range right out of the gate. So, but that's my pitch on the Meridian. Why it's good. Why it's good to have. Definitely good to have one and to upgrade it. And then a second one, just for also competing in isogen rush events, or if you're taking your time and you're kind of just proceeding slowly, you're one of the people who wants to sort of catch everything up. Spoiler alert: you'll never really ever get caught up. Just when you think you are making great progress in resources and research, um, they'll add something new, and then you'll be like, oh, now I got to get all that. Oh, now there's a new building I have to catch up 30 levels on, or now there's a new research tab, or a couple new trees that they added within a tab that I have to start doing a bunch of stuff on. Um, so I wouldn't recommend kind of just keep a steady progression. The whole idea of I'm going to camp here for a couple of months and just sort of stock up and catch up on some stuff. Uh, it's not it's not as appealing, and it's not as functional as it once was, maybe 6 months or a year ago. These natural little camping points, they've kind of tweaked the economy enough, so you don't really need to stop at these points. You kind of just keep moving through, just keep pushing through. Whether you're a spender or a free-to-play person, you're just buying the battle pass for $20 a month, or um, if you're also doing the elite pack, which we covered in a previous video, the big difference between the $100 pack and the $50 pack. Quick recap: $50 pack is absolute garbage. $100 pack is awesome. So uh, if you if you only have $50, save it, and then next month put it with another $50 and get the elite pack. Huge difference, as I mentioned. I mean, just in terms of what you get, right? Yeah, it's only going to show me the elite rewards. But like, here's the elite pack. Oh, look, it's all this stuff. Thousands, thousands, thousands of latinum, thousands speed ups, all kinds of thousands of stuff. But even the daily one, yeah. So like the daily elite one, you get 30 of the 4 stars, some of the 3 stars, a little bit of the 2 stars, 48 one-hour speed ups, and then it's like, what do I get in the choice pack? No fours. I get barely any threes and twos and 12 speed ups. I'm getting for half the price. I'm getting like a fourth of the materials. So, highly recommend if you are going to do that, just save up. Just do this 6 times a year instead of doing this 12 times a year. Um, so much better. So much better for your long-term progression, if that's where you're at in terms of spending. Um, but yeah, once you first start getting into deep space and can start hitting some of these places, to really save on having to use your discovery and having to constantly use all that disco juice, which again is also a once a day refinery. And it doesn't really even give you a whole lot. It doesn't even tell you, once you hit your max capacity, which I think is 5,000. Once you're above 5,000, it doesn't even let you refine it. So you can't even continue to cash that in. So you're always going to sort of be limited in terms of what you can refine and what you can do in a day. And if you're spending 1,500, and if somebody kills you and you have to warp back out and do it again to finish your daily, you could be spending up to 3,000 um, or higher per day, or you could just use a Meridian and just take a little longer to do it. But the ship itself can fly its way out there. I think I've made my point. I'm going to rest here. Upgrade your Meridian to tier 6. Get the warp speed. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something today about the Meridian, and I'll see you around the galaxy, alright? Have a good night.